It was the kind of love story everyone dreamed about. It started like a fairy tale, as most do. Mia had always believed in destiny, in that magical connection that could never be broken. She was a hopeless romantic, searching for the kind of love that would sweep her off her feet. And then, one night, it happened. She had just started a new job at a small art gallery in the heart of the city, a quiet place tucked away from the hustle and bustle of daily life. The gallery was her escape, her place to breathe, where she could lose herself in the beauty of art. It was during one of those late-night shifts when she first met Ethan. He came in to see an exhibition, and something about his presence felt different from the moment he walked through the door. Ethan was tall, with dark, brooding eyes that seemed to see straight through her. His hair was messy, like he had just rolled out of bed, and his clothes were slightly worn, yet effortlessly stylish. There was an air of mystery around him, something unspoken that made Mia curious, and she couldn't help but be drawn to him. Their first conversation was short, yet it felt like time stood still. He asked her about the painting behind the counter, a hauntingly beautiful piece that depicted a woman standing alone on a beach at sunset. Mia explained the artist's backstory, but their discussion quickly veered off course into deeper, more personal territory. It wasn't long before she realized she had already given him more of her attention than she had intended. "Do you believe in love at first sight?" Ethan asked, his voice smooth, yet tinged with something almost playful. Mia smiled nervously. "I don't know. I think I've always been skeptical of those things. But maybe there's something to it." Ethan's eyes sparkled, and in that moment, Mia could have sworn he knew exactly what she was thinking. "I think you'll change your mind," he said softly, almost as if to himself, before adding, "I'm Ethan, by the way." "Mia," she replied, feeling a rush of excitement she hadn't felt in years. They exchanged pleasantries, and before she knew it, the clock struck midnight. He'd been there for hours, talking to her about everything and nothing. He was open, yet mysterious. Funny, yet serious. It was like he had layers she wanted to peel back, one by one, to discover what was hidden beneath the surface. The night ended with Ethan promising to return the next day. True to his word, he came back. And the day after that. And the day after that. Each time, he brought something new, a rare book he thought Mia might like, a cup of coffee from her favourite cafe, a single rose that he handed her with a knowing smile. Slowly, the line between a casual acquaintance and something deeper began to blur. It wasn't long before they were inseparable. Their connection grew rapidly, like wildfire, spreading through the cracks of their lives until it enveloped them completely. Ethan would pick her up for dinner at a quiet little bistro, and they'd talk for hours under the glow of the streetlights. They'd walk through the park at night, just the two of them, sharing secrets and dreams. Every moment felt like magic. Mia thought she had found the one. The person who understood her in ways no one else had, the one who could see into her soul without her having to say a word. Ethan was her everything, and in her eyes, their love was perfect, unstoppable. But as their relationship deepened, Mia began to notice small things that didn't sit right. At first, it was just tiny inconsistencies, like how Ethan would sometimes disappear for hours without explanation, or how he would get uncomfortable when she asked too many questions about his past. She didn't think much of it, brushing it off as him being private or a little guarded. After all, they were just getting to know each other. But as the weeks passed, those small details started to pile up, creating a sense of unease that Mia couldn't ignore. She found herself asking questions she hadn't asked before. Why did he always change the subject when she asked about his family? Why didn't he want to meet her friends? Why did he refuse to tell her where he lived, only ever saying he stayed in a temporary place? Mia told herself that it didn't matter. They had something real, something special, and those little mysteries only added to the allure of Ethan. But deep down, a voice in her head kept whispering, warning her that something wasn't quite right. One evening, everything changed. Mia had stayed late at work, finishing up some paperwork when she got a call from Ethan. His voice on the other end was different off, somehow. "I need to talk to you," he said, his tone tight. "Can you meet me at the park in 10 minutes? The urgency in his voice sent a chill down her spine, but she agreed, not knowing what to expect. The park was deserted when she arrived, the wind rustling through the trees, the moon casting long shadows over the empty paths. Ethan stood by a bench, his back turned to her, his hands shoved into his pockets. "Mir," he began, turning to face her. His face was serious, almost solemn. "There's something I need to tell you." Mir's heart raced. She knew this wasn't going to be good. "I've been lying to you," Ethan said quietly, his eyes filled with guilt. "Everything I've told you, it's all been a lie." Mir felt like the ground beneath her was suddenly unstable, like the entire world had shifted in the blink of an eye. She couldn't understand what he was saying. "What are you talking about?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "The truth is," Ethan hesitated, his gaze faltering. "I'm not who you think I am. I've been hiding things from you. Big things. And now, I don't know how to fix it." Mir's mind spun, trying to process the words he had just spoken. Every moment of their time together, every word, every touch, suddenly felt tainted by his confession. What had she missed? What was he hiding? "You're scaring me," Ethan, Mir said, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you," he replied, his voice cracking. "But it's too late now. I've already dragged you into this, and I'm not sure how much longer we can keep this up." Mir felt as though the walls were closing in around her. "What do you mean?" she demanded, unable to mask the fear in her voice. Ethan stepped closer, his face now mere inches from hers. "Mir, I'm not who you think I am. I'm in danger. And you're in danger too." The words hung in the air, each one heavier than the last. Mir stared at him, trying to make sense of the chaos that had suddenly invaded her life. What was he talking about? What danger? And then, before she could ask another question, Ethan turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Mir alone in the park, her heart pounding, her mind racing with uncertainty. The fairy tale romance had come to an end. And the truth, it seemed, was far darker than she could have ever imagined. Mir's world felt as if it were collapsing around her. The park was eerily silent, the only sound being the rustle of the leaves in the wind. She stood there, her mind spinning, her heart thudding painfully in her chest. Ethan's words echoed in her ears. "I'm not who you think I am. I'm in danger. And you're in danger too." She didn't know what to believe. The man she had come to trust, the man she had shared her most intimate thoughts with, was suddenly a stranger. A stranger whose past, whose intentions, were now clouded with shadows. Mir's first instinct was to run after him, to demand answers. But something inside her, an instinct she couldn't ignore, held her back. She didn't know if it was fear or a strange sense of betrayal, but she knew she needed time. Time to process everything. Time to think. She went home that night, but sleep eluded her. Her mind kept racing. What had Ethan meant? Was he in danger? Was she? The questions burned at her, but the answers felt just out of reach, like pieces of a puzzle scattered across a darkened room. The next day, she tried to go about her normal routine. She went to work, but her mind was never fully there. She found herself staring blankly at the art pieces, her thoughts drifting back to Ethan. What if he was telling the truth? What if he really was in some kind of trouble? What if all the secrets he'd kept from her weren't just lies, but a protective shield, something he'd built up to keep her safe from whatever danger surrounded him? But then, what was he involved in? What kind of trouble could he be hiding? She couldn't ignore the unease that gnawed at her. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that there had been signs she had brushed off, or perhaps had been too blinded by love to see. Ethan was always a little too secretive. There were moments when he seemed distant, withdrawn. When he would pull away, not wanting to talk about certain things. Now it all made sense. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. "Mia," a voice called from the other side. It was Lucy, her best friend, and Mia's heart sank. She hadn't told Lucy about what happened last night, but it didn't take long for her to notice that something was off. She opened the door, her face pale, her eyes haunted. "What's wrong?" Lucy asked, concern written all over her face. "I don't know," Mia said, her voice shaky. She felt tears welling up, but she quickly wiped them away. "It's Ethan. There's something about him, something he's hiding from me." Lucy's expression softened, and she stepped inside. "I knew something was off. You've been acting different lately." "What happened?" Mia quickly explained everything, the way Ethan had confessed that he wasn't who he seemed, his cryptic warning about danger, and his sudden disappearance. "You've got to find him, Mia," Lucy urged, her tone firm. "You can't just leave it like this. You need answers. If he's really in trouble, you have to help him. If he's lying, well, you deserve to know the truth." Mia nodded, but her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She wanted to find Ethan, wanted to understand what he had meant, but the fear of what she might uncover held her back. What if the truth was something she couldn't handle? What if Ethan wasn't the person she had thought he was? The thought of him being involved in something dangerous, something criminal, made her feel sick to her stomach. But no matter how much she tried to push those thoughts away, they lingered. She couldn't deny the possibility that the man she loved wasn't who he had led her to believe. That night, Mia decided to take action. She couldn't sit back any longer, wondering what was really going on. She needed to find Ethan. She needed to confront him, to understand the darkness that he had hidden from her. The only problem was, she didn't know where to start. Ethan had never given her any real information about where he lived or what his life was like outside of their time together. He was always vague about his past, always deflecting when she asked. But then, a thought struck her. She remembered something he had said, something innocuous at the time, but now it felt important. He had mentioned that he was staying in a temporary place, somewhere far from the city. Mia had assumed it was just a little apartment, or a friend's place, but now she realized she needed to investigate. If she could find that temporary place, maybe she would finally uncover the truth. The next day, Mia left work early. She wasn't sure where to begin, but she knew she had to start somewhere. She had to find him. After hours of searching, she finally found the address she was looking for. It was an old, run-down building on the outskirts of the city. The place was practically abandoned, with cracked windows and peeling paint. It didn't look like somewhere someone would choose to stay, unless they had no other options. Mia's stomach churned with unease as she approached the entrance. She hesitated for a moment, wondering if this was the right thing to do. But she pushed the doubt aside. She had to know the truth. The building was eerily silent as Mia made her way up the stairs, each step creaking under her weight. When she reached the top floor, she saw a door at the end of the hallway. Her heart pounded in her chest. This was it. This was where Ethan had been staying. She knocked gently at first, then harder when no one answered. After a moment, the door creaked open. "Mia." Ethan's voice came from the shadows. Mia's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Ethan stood there, his expression unreadable, his eyes shadowed with guilt, and something else, something she couldn't quite place. "I didn't expect you to come here," he said softly, stepping aside to let her in. Mia didn't say anything at first. She simply walked past him, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. The room was small, barely furnished, with an old couch and a few scattered belongings. It was nothing like the life Mia had imagined for them. There were no signs of the man she had fallen in love with, no trace of the charming, confident Ethan she had known. "Mia," Ethan said again, his voice breaking through her thoughts. "I didn't want you to see this side of my life. I didn't want you to get involved." "Then why didn't you tell me the truth, Ethan?" Mia asked, her voice steady, but her heart breaking. Why did you lie to me? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I never meant to hurt you. But the truth is I've been running from something. Something I can't escape. Mia stepped closer, her voice urgent. What are you running from? What aren't you telling me? Ethan's eyes darkened, and he took a step back. It's not something I can explain easily. But the truth is, I've been involved with people, dangerous people. And I've done things that I can't undo. Things I've regretted every day. Mia's breath caught in her throat. She had suspected something, but hearing it from him made it all too real. You're mixed up in something criminal, she whispered. Ethan nodded slowly, his eyes filled with regret. I never wanted you to be a part of this. But now it's too late. You've already been dragged in. And I don't know how much longer I can keep you safe. Mia's mind was reeling. This was the man she had loved, the man she had trusted with her heart. But the truth was darker than she had ever imagined. The man she had fallen for was hiding a past full of secrets, lies, and danger. And now, there was no escaping it. As Ethan's words sank in, Mia realized she was standing at the edge of something far more dangerous than she could have ever prepared for. And the worst part was, she didn't know if she could ever trust him again. Mia's mind was swirling. The reality of Ethan's words hit her like a ton of bricks. She stood there, rooted to the spot, trying to digest what he had just confessed. The man she had given her heart to was involved in something far darker than she could have ever imagined. Her chest tightened as the weight of the situation pressed down on her. The life she thought they had was a lie. Everything about Ethan, every smile, every kiss, every whispered promise was tainted now by the revelation that he had been hiding a dangerous past. She took a step back, the air around her suddenly feeling thick, suffocating. I don't understand, she whispered, her voice trembling. Why didn't you tell me? Why keep all of this from me? Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a look of frustration crossing his face. I didn't want to bring you into this, Mia. You were my escape. But now he trailed off, his words faltering as if he couldn't find the right ones. Now what? Mia demanded, her voice rising. Now you're going to let me drown in whatever mess you've created. You say you care about me, but you've been hiding this from me. I trusted you, Ethan. The words stung, and for a moment, Mia saw something flicker in Ethan's eyes, regret, fear, something raw and real. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Instead, he walked to the window, his back turned to her, as though trying to gather himself. Let me explain, he said after a long silence, his voice low, almost pleading. Please, just let me explain. Mia felt a knot in her stomach. She wanted to leave. She wanted to walk out and never look back. But the part of her that still cared, that still loved him, stopped her. It was as if a small, fragile thread of hope was still tangled around her heart, making her hesitate. What could you possibly say that would make any of this make sense? She asked, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. You lied to me. You kept secrets from me. I don't even know who you are anymore. Ethan turned slowly, his eyes dark, shadowed with guilt. I never meant for it to go this far. But I didn't have a choice. He stepped closer to her, and despite the turmoil inside her, Mia couldn't help but notice how worn he looked. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by something much more vulnerable. I wasn't always who I am now, Ethan began, his voice soft but steady. Before I met you, I was living a different life. A life that I'm not proud of. I got involved with people who weren't the best kind of people, and one thing led to another. I made choices, bad choices, and I ended up in a situation where I owed them. They're dangerous, Mia. I don't know how to get out. But I didn't want you anywhere near it. I didn't want you to be a part of my mess. Mia felt her heart pound in her chest. She wanted to scream at him, to demand more answers. But instead, she stood there, frozen, trying to make sense of everything he had just said. So, what are you saying? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. You're in some kind of trouble with criminals. Ethan nodded slowly, his eyes filled with an emotion she couldn't quite place. I've done things I regret. Things that can't be undone. And now, they're threatening me. Threatening you, Mir. I couldn't risk putting you in danger. I thought keeping you away from all of it would keep you safe. Mir's head spun. This wasn't the life she had imagined. The man she had fallen for, the man who had seemed so perfect, so kind, was not who he appeared to be. He was tangled up in a world of crime, and now it was spilling over into her life, into the relationship. She had been a fool to not see the signs earlier. But what does this have to do with me? She asked, her voice sharp with a mixture of anger and confusion. Why do they care about me? Why does it have to be me who's in danger? Because they know about you, Ethan said quietly, his face tight with fear. They know you're important to me, and they'll use you to get to me. If they can't hurt me, they'll hurt you. And I can't let that happen. I can't lose you. Mir felt a chill crawl up her spine. She had never felt so exposed, so vulnerable. She had thought Ethan's love was the one thing she could count on, but now it seemed like everything was a lie, a twisted, tangled mess of secrets and half-truths. Who are they, Ethan? Mir asked, her voice almost pleading now. Who are these people you're involved with? Ethan hesitated, as if weighing his next words. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. They're part of a network, Mir. A criminal organization. I got involved with them through a business deal that turned out to be a lot more dangerous than I ever imagined. I didn't know who they really were at first, but once I was in, there was no way out. They're dangerous, Mir. And I've done things to protect myself, things I never should have done. Mir felt her breath catch in her throat. She wanted to turn away, to run, to escape. But something kept her rooted in place. She needed to know the full truth, even if it was too much to bear. So, what happens now? She asked, her voice trembling. What are we supposed to do? Ethan looked at her, his eyes filled with sorrow. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. But whatever happens, Mir, I need you to stay away from them. I can't let them hurt you. Then why didn't you just tell me the truth from the start? She asked, her voice breaking. Why didn't you let you in? I could have helped, I didn't want you to be involved, Ethan interrupted, his voice urgent. I wanted to keep you safe, Mir. I didn't want you to get caught in the mess I created. Mir felt a wave of frustration wash over her. Well, now I'm involved, she said, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear. You can't just shut me out, Ethan. You can't expect me to walk away from everything we've built. We've been through so much together. I love you. The words hung in the air between them. Ethan's eyes softened, his face contorting with the weight of everything he had kept hidden. I love you too, Mir. More than you'll ever know, he said, his voice thick with emotion. But this is bigger than both of us. I don't want you to get hurt. I've already lost so much in my life. I can't lose you too. Mia stood there, torn between the man she had loved and the terrifying truth that was now before her. She had never imagined that their relationship, one that had felt so perfect, so safe, could be overshadowed by such danger. Ethan's dark past had collided with her life, and now she had to figure out where to go from here. For a moment, the world around her seemed to fall away. She could barely hear the sound of her own heartbeat over the rush of emotions surging through her. She was angry, yes, but she was also scared. Scared for herself. Scared for Ethan. Scared of the unknown danger that now seemed to lurk at every corner. Then what do we do now, Ethan? Mir asked, her voice barely a whisper. Where do we go from here? Ethan looked at her, his face a mixture of fear and determination. I don't know, but I'll figure it out. I promise. I'll protect you, Mir. I'll do whatever it takes. And yet, in the pit of her stomach, Mir felt a gnawing uncertainty. The man she had trusted, the man she had loved, was now a stranger. His past was too dangerous, too twisted, and she wasn't sure if she could ever trust him again. But at the same time, she couldn't let go of the person he had been, the person she had fallen for. The truth was too overwhelming, too mind-boggling to fully grasp. But as she looked into Ethan's eyes, she knew one thing for sure: this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a much darker journey. The days after the truth came crashing down were some of the hardest Mia had ever experienced. She hadn't expected things to unravel so quickly. In just a matter of hours, her entire world had been turned upside down. Ethan, the man she thought she knew, was wrapped up in a criminal underworld that she couldn't even begin to understand. And now, her life was in danger. She could feel the weight of that knowledge bearing down on her every moment of every day. She hasn't seen Ethan since their last confrontation. He had promised to keep her safe, to protect her from whatever dark forces were after him. But despite his words, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure of whether she would fall or somehow find her footing again. Her apartment felt empty without him. The silence was suffocating. She hadn't even wanted to turn on the lights at night anymore. Every corner of the room seemed to remind her of him. The way he would smile at her from across the room. The soft, tender way he would hold her. It all felt like a distant memory, now a fantasy that had been shattered by the cruel reality of his secrets. Mia lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. She replayed the conversation they had over and over again in her head, trying to make sense of it all. How could she have been so blind? How could she have let herself fall in love with someone who had been lying to her the entire time? She closed her eyes, trying to block out the pain, but it was impossible. She had loved him, and she had trusted him. And now, all of that had crumbled into dust. Days turned into weeks, and Mia found herself consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. She was angry at Ethan for keeping her in the dark, for dragging her into this mess. Angry at herself for being so naive. But beneath the anger, there was an even deeper feeling: betrayal. The person she had given her heart to, the person she had opened herself up to, had lied to her. He had kept her in the shadows, hiding things that should have been shared, that should have been a part of their life together. But then came the pain. The loneliness. The empty ache that filled her chest whenever she thought about the life they had built together, and the life that was now lost. Ethan's absence was a constant presence, an unspoken weight she couldn't shake off. She kept thinking about what could have been, about the future they might have had if things had been different. She kept wondering if she could ever forgive him. If she could ever look past the lies, the secrets, the danger that was now a part of her life. But no matter how much she tried, she couldn't find the answers. The questions kept swirling in her mind, pushing her to the brink of madness. How could she trust again? How could she open her heart to anyone after what had happened? Was it possible to heal from something like this? One night, as she sat alone in her apartment, she heard a knock at the door. Her heart leapt into her throat. She wasn't expecting anyone. Her first instinct was to ignore it, but something told her she had to open the door. When she did, her breath caught in her throat. Standing there, looking as tired and worn as she felt, was Ethan. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Ethan looked at her with a mixture of guilt and longing in his eyes, his face drawn with exhaustion. He was different now. His once confident demeanor had been replaced by a man who was visibly broken, a man who had lost everything. Mia's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to turn him away. She wanted to tell him that it was over, that she couldn't handle the lies anymore. But as she stood there, looking at him, she realized that she couldn't just shut him out. Not entirely. Despite everything, a small part of her still loved him. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What are you doing here?" "I had to see you," Ethan said, his voice raw. "I couldn't leave things like this, Mia. I've been trying to protect you, trying to figure out how to fix everything. But I can't do it without you. I know I've hurt you. I know I've lied to you. But I need you to understand that I never wanted this to happen. I never wanted to drag you into this. You were supposed to be my escape. You were supposed to be the one thing in my life that was real. Mia swallowed hard, her emotions threatening to spill over. She wanted to scream at him, to tell him that it was too late for apologies, too late to fix anything. But she couldn't. The hurt, the betrayal, it was all too much. I don't know if I can forgive you, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. You lied to me. You kept things from me. You put me in danger. Ethan's eyes filled with sorrow. He stepped closer to her, his voice pleading. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. But Mir, I need you to know that I never wanted to hurt you. I was trying to protect you, to keep you away from all of this. But now that I've seen what I've done, I can't live with myself. I don't expect you to forgive me, not right away. But I need you to know how much I care about you. Mir closed her eyes, the pain of his words almost too much to bear. Part of her wanted to push him away, to shut the door and never see him again. But the other part of her, the part that still loved him, that still believed in him, couldn't let go. I don't know if I can trust you again, she said softly, her voice breaking. I don't know if I can ever go back to the way things were. I understand, Ethan said, his voice filled with defeat. I know I've ruined everything. I don't deserve your trust. But I'll do whatever it takes to earn it back. I just need you to give me a chance. Mia stood there, torn between the man she had loved and the man who had betrayed her. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to scream at him for putting her through this. But she couldn't. Not entirely. Not when she still felt the remnants of the love they had shared. I don't know if I can heal from this, Mia said, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know if I can ever forget what you did. I don't expect you to, Ethan replied softly. But I'll be here. I'll wait. If you ever decide you want to try again, if you ever decide you can trust me again, I'll be here. The silence between them stretched on, the weight of their broken relationship heavy in the air. Mia didn't know what the future held, or if they could ever go back to what they once had. But she knew one thing for sure: she couldn't keep living in the past, in the pain. She couldn't let it consume her. With a deep breath, she stepped back, closing the door gently. Goodbye, Ethan, she whispered. And as she turned away, the finality of the words hit her. She wasn't just saying goodbye to him. She was saying goodbye to the person she used to be, the person who believed in fairytale endings. It was time for her to heal. Time for her to rediscover who she was without him, without the lies, without the danger. Mia didn't know how long it would take, or if she would ever fully heal. But she knew that she had to find a way forward. A way to reclaim her heart, her life, and her future. And for the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of the darkness.